Good evening, everybody. Welcome to my final presentation for online speech class. And my final speech is going to be about the importance of becoming a good coach. It could be either in basketball, football, or just in general being a store manager, which I'm getting into. I used to be a former student assistant coach for the community colleges of Spokane. So some of that stuff does tie into what I'm doing. Okay, what are the three main reasons coaching is so important, whether it's in any kind of sport or even just being a general manager in the future? Well, let's take a look. Let's see. Okay, first of all, it keeps students out of trouble, or it keeps employees out of trouble, and it gives them the force of impact when you have on either a student or a coworker, when they're either working for you or even if they're playing for you. That's one of the main reasons you want to be successful, and you want them to get to like you, and want them to be able to have that trust with them is one of the main important reasons. Next, they'll likely succeed in the workforce, or whether it's trying to move up into management. That's something what I'm doing right now, but even getting into that management program or even trying to coach, what I've learned from all my assistant coaches and my head coach when I was helping out with basketball or football is learning how to adapt with your players or adapt with your coworkers. It's not all about, you don't have to be serious at work all the time. You gotta learn to have fun a little bit, but then be serious at the same time. That's what we're working on at my job. Since I work at a smaller store than all the other Rosarses, I've noticed that trend over the last year that we all bond together really well and we all gel together really well. And then there's some nights where we go out and have some cold drinks or just talk and have a good time. That's what the workforce is supposed to be about. Not just all about seriousness, but just having fun at the same time. And finally, they'll learn to just have fun and just be themselves, being in the workforce. But at the same time, you just want them to be able to play well, whether it's in a sport or be able to work for you well, and not having to yell at them or be hard on them unless you really have to, if they're not understanding what you're gaining. But most of the time, you just want them to be able to have that trust and have that bond with their manager or their coach, so that they be able to have a successful work crew or coaching crew or whatever you want to do. Okay, next. What are the 5 keys of being a successful coach? Well, one of them, just flow must come first when dealing with student athletes, dealing with employees, etc. Just having that flow with them, just having that coach to player bond, or have that manager to employee bond, or
And giving them somebody to look up to.
Yeah, there we go. But give them something to look up to, and then not being able to be afraid of them. That's the thing.
Yeah.
At first, when I was starting out at my other Rosars, I was afraid of talking to the manager sometimes, but I got to learn to open up, and if there's something that's bothering me, go up to them and ask them for help, ask them for advice, or even if it's coaching, asking that coach for advice. That's the one main reasons to be successful. And 2, you must prioritize and create practice and game schedules. Even in the grocery store or even retail, you got to learn to have that scheduling when they're going to work next, or when the next major holiday is going to come. We got to have that communication. That's going to be the key. And then having that flow and making sure you have enough staff members or enough employees to have that workflow going. Or even when we're in like sports, having that game flow and then practice up to getting up to that game day and preparing for that. That's one of the second ones. Then next is just keeping your communication consistent. That's one of the main things. Being able to communicate with one another.
Like being available to your employees.
Absolutely, yeah, there
Yeah.
we go. And just being available, and then being dependable is one thing. But I know there's stuff that might come up, but that's life, and we have no control over that. But that's just one of the main reasons of having communication, just being able to communicate with your employees, communicating with your players, communicating with your students is one thing, is having that main communication. Next is always being flexible with your players, your assistant coaches, your assistant managers, etc. Having that communication will be key, because the assistants need to know what's going on, or if the head coach or the head manager is gone, or if he's sick or something happens, then the assistant has to step up at a moment's notice and assume the store manager's role and their priorities, or the coach's role and priorities on how to develop a good team, a good atmosphere. That's one of the things I've learned right now from my when I started with produce at the other Rosars.
On 29th?
On 14th and Lincoln.
Oh, yeah.
Is just having that role. Is I'm the third guy under my produce manager and our lead guy, and the lead guy is just telling me, this is good skills to learn, and he's having me do the ordering and learn how to do the shrinkage, count it all up. He's like, because you're gonna have to step up one day if I retire, if the if the produce manager is ill or has something going on, then you're the third guy that could step up at any time and be able to take charge and run the show in produce is one thing. And that's what I've learned over this last year, is having that consistency and have that flexibility to step up at any time. That's one of the main reasons of being flexible and being successful in the coaching or in the managing field. And then finally, just being open to any suggestions is always key. Like I'm the third guy at the store, and I always come up with suggestions and stuff from my produce manager or my lead guy, and they always follow through with it, and they're like, "Oh, that's a good idea, Will."
So you'll feel like you're part of the success of the store.
Absolutely. Just being successful is one thing, and just being as a team, that's one thing, and bonding with one another and having that relationship and that communication is always going to be key, no matter what the outcome is going to be. All right. In conclusion, little quote here. Coaches must also provide specifics and exercise through correct understanding of moralities and physiological moods of all athletes, and set up counseling sessions for all members of younger teams to make them ready during several months before and after competitions. That also ties into being a store manager, like having that communication with your employees when they first start out on the floor as a bagger or getting into training and for a different department. This also ties into that as well, is having that physiological mood, and then counseling sessions, and then every 4 weeks we do evaluations on all the new employees to be able to have them know where they're at and what they need to work on for the next 4 weeks, and then they do an 8-week evaluation to see if they've met those goals from the last 4 weeks, and then finally we'll go from there. And then they do the 90-day probation like all the other stores do.
So they always know where they stand.
Yep, they know where they stand. And then be able to kind of look at some strengths and weaknesses of what they need to know, and how they could work on different steps of being successful with the company, or if that company doesn't work out, there's other companies or other jobs that might be able to recruit them. But just having that success with that employer, even just in general, just coaching, just knowing what they need to work on, what kind of basic skills they need to work on to get to the next level at all times. I know there's nights Dad and I always talked about that, how you could gel with your players, and if you want to be successful, you got to work on this. Even throughout the years when I was in grade school, and he's working with Maya on the words, and it's kind of just nail them into me so that way I know what the words are and how I can move up to the next level at all times. And that's always going to be success in the coaching and in the managing as well. And then also tying into that is just, it's always recommended to seriously evaluate sport competition anxiety and try to decrease it in team members and especially coaches in order to gain positive and effective results. Same with managing. That's want to be able to recommend different ways of each employee to work on different skills or different relationships with the customers or with their coworkers, so that everybody gets along and everybody can do their job effectively and accurately. Because all that's going to tie in, and that's going to make that employee really successful
And
comfortable to
Yeah.
work for you.
Right.
That's the main thing. And then also it's just also suggested that similar research can be conducted on coaches or women athletes and to compare their results with the present study. And we see more and more females playing in sports and participating in sports, and there was a Title IX back in 1979 where the Title IX passed, and they started adding women's sports, women's basketball, volleyball to high school, colleges, middle schools, you name it. There's a lot more women nowadays. My hands going to sleep. Are nowadays playing or even coaching.
Right.
Even in the college level, I see females coaching men's basketball. I don't really see a whole lot of women coaching women's basketball, and I just wish there would be a little bit more in that way of women coaches or women role models for basketball or volleyball or any type of sport.
Right.
And then short story short, this all ties into managing and getting males and females all together and being on the same page while working and
The same team.
in the same team and being successful.
Good job.
All
Yeah.
right. And
Yay,
that's
well,
it.
I can't clap, but yay.
That's okay.
Okay, here, my hand went to sleep.
All right. Oh, yeah, I know you got those bad hands.
It did, it went to sleep.
Oh, thank you.